paranoid sometimes, sound manic. But, you know, he pulls off so many different things with the voice. It's his best instrument.
Apart from the very obvious sort of songwriting and the singing, I always felt that Robert was a really kind of underrated guitarist. Having seen how he could so easily put life into some of the Banshees songs which weren't written by him, I knew that there was much more to him as a guitar player than had really been previously seen. So when we came to do the Glove album, I really wanted to sort of push that area of him, and I think some of his best guitar playing is on that album. Just because I think he just, you know, he wasn't the front person. You know, we were doing it together, and we basically got somebody else in to sing. And so, you know, there was a couple of moments on that album where he really lets loose as a guitarist, and I think it's fantastic.
He can play virtually any mood. But one of the great things that he's able to do is create an atmosphere with his guitar playing. I mean, most people can pick up a guitar and strum a few chords, but he's able to, with the tuning, he uses all different kinds of tunings on the guitars as well. So those moods that he's able to create kind of, for my own personal taste, remind me of Joni Mitchell a bit, because she uses a lot of different tunings on the guitars.
His voice is his calling card. That's the great thing. I mean, just like Bob Dylan's voice or Johnny Rotten's voice is his calling card, so it is with Robert. That and his hair. And I think they've been incredibly astute over the years, that however far out they've gone from that original Cure sound, the two things that have remained constant are the hair and the voice. And that's great branding. You know, you've got to have product identification in the modern world of marketing and profiling. And
pornography tour had been an uncomfortable experience for The Cure, it had also provided an occasion for the band to develop their visual image. The band members wore lipstick around their mouths and eyes and began to articulate a clear sense of their live identity.
First time I saw them play live, there was Robertson would kind of stand there, hold his guitar and sing. And there was not much movement. Very charismatic though, he didn't have to do anything. Simon Gallup would do like he does now, kind of hunch over his bass and move backwards and forwards, very kind of Stranglers stroke Peter Hook thing going on there. And that was a performance. They had a film as well. They showed a film in the background they made, like a very kind of arty kind of film. It's very stark lighting, very dark, but they didn't need a big performance because the music was so dense, it kind of pulled you in. It wasn't like there's a massive mosh pit at the front, you know. Well, there was for like Forest and slightly faster songs, but people were just kind of like captivated by the music. It was that kind of audience.
A Cure gig is always about atmosphere. Now, by the time I was going to see The Cure, they were already playing big places. And in fact, I've only seen The Cure play sort of really big gigs. But even when they were playing a massive, you know, arena, or they were playing Glastonbury Festival, which they've got a really good connection with, or they were playing, you know, in Orange in a massive amphitheatre, and you're actually sat on a hill half a mile away, they were really, really good at retaining the atmosphere of a small gig. Now, that's partly because of the sense of community of the fans, and partly because they're a really, really good live band. But I think they would never sacrifice, you know, they wouldn't subscribe to that cool indie idea of, you know, it's not about performing. And that's why they succeeded where so many bands didn't, because they would always put on a show. Now, not a show in the fact that they weren't doing dance routines, you know, they weren't having dancing girls on stage, but they would always make sure that the visuals or the lights or the smoke or whatever always, you know, would enhance their performance.
When you saw The Cure live on stage, mostly you saw a band very intent on delivering their music in an uncompromising Pink Floyd type way, relying on lights and shadows really to give the illusion of some atmosphere. But effectively they were there pretty much just going through the music, they were just delivering the songs. And I think because it was all coming out of Robert Smith's mind to an extent, and we saw little hints of it with the hair and the lips, but essentially it was a mental state he was delivering, so physically he wasn't a natural performer, and I guess his size counted against him, the old fat Bob thing. He wasn't necessarily going to throw loads of poses and jump about and give that kind of physical resonance. So it did have that slight sort of sense of a delivery, of a concert, like Pink Floyd, a concert of music. It was that serious side of Robert, that he tried to give great disguise with the hair and the lips, but effectively a serious musician, delivering serious songs that had serious, sort of import about them. And that's really what you got from their live shows, I think.
In the late summer of 1983, Phil Thornley and Andy Anderson joined The Cure on bass and drums respectively. The New Look Cure recorded the hit single Love Cats, and a collection of pop singles and B-sides, Japanese Whispers, was released in December '83.
I'll always have a great deal of affection for the Love Cats because A, it was one of the records that really got me into The Cure, but also because it was one of those records that showed that you can have the poppiest record in the world, you can go out there and you can be poppier than any boy band, any girl group, anything that's got Simon Cowell's name over it, but it doesn't mean you have to be stupid. And the Love Cats is an incredibly intricate and clever record. It sounds really weird. I mean, it sounded weird then, mainly because it's got that weird double bass on it, which just wasn't a very trendy record to have on records in 1983. But it sounds really weird, and yet it's instantly accessible. So it's one of those Cure records you could stick that on at a wedding, and your granny would probably keep dancing to it, But you could stick it on at the most alternative disco, and everybody would drop their cool for 5 minutes and dance along to it. So I mean, it's a brilliant pop record, and one of the responsible really for The Cure reaching that really wider mainstream audience, and those singles were really important. I think hardcore Cure purists who were into the band prior to those records had a tendency to sneer at the time, but I think a few years on, they probably actually appreciate what Robert Smith was doing with those singles, because they were quite important to him as well. He needed to get away from the depressing angst rock, otherwise he probably wouldn't have been able to go on to make the later albums.
But Robert Smith will not be fond of Love Cats precisely because it's people's favourite. And he knows that really there was he does do that, he does novelty songs. He's very good at a novelty song because he's so infused with the spirit of what pop music is. He can do that, he can make novelty songs. Occasionally those novelty songs are blindingly interesting because they, something like I Wish I Could Be You, or Why Can't I Be You. It's like, it's a weird combination of upbeat, but the lyrics themselves are still Smith lyrics, and he can do that. He can make great melodies. He can tap into pop history and the great pop songs of David Bowie and Mark Bolan. That's what he can do. But it's something that ultimately he's bored with. He doesn't want to do it. But it's the curse of him in a way is that's really what people remember. It's the upbeat, it's the pop choruses, it's the catchiness, not the epic, textual glories where he's approaching some kind of, postmodern classical music using the guitar, almost in a sort of Lou Reed sense.
I think, if you took the body of what we've done, right from the beginning, right the way through, it's pretty evenly balanced between, unhappy and happy.
1983 also witnessed an important step in the development of The Cure as a visual art project. The band had decided to shoot a video for Let's Go to Bed, a move that began a long and much celebrated collaboration with director Tim Pope.
Tim Pope's videos for In Between Days and Close to Me in particular were incredibly groundbreaking videos. People think of the 80s as the golden age for the pop video, but actually 99% of them were rubbish, and the other 1% was just expensive rubbish. So to have something which clearly not a great deal of money had been spent on, but there was an enormous amount of visual creativity in those videos, and indeed in loads of other videos that they made as well. But just the idea of Robert Smith in a wardrobe falling off a cliff, or being attacked by fluorescent gloves, or whatever those things were, you're never quite sure what was going on in their videos, which was a bit different to the other stuff as well. So certainly livened up the chart show on many a Saturday morning.
Tim Pope always did something that was more arty, more clever.